All right, hello and welcome to another edition of the Power Platform and Dynamics 365 technical update briefing for October. My name is Ryan Anderson. I'm a senior cloud solution architect at Microsoft and focus on Power Platform and Dynamics 365. So I'll be covering those areas today, the Dynamics areas being the customer engagement apps. And then also with me today is Tom Stumpf, who's a principal cloud solution architect, and he'll be focusing on the Dynamics 365 finance and operations apps. So before we get started, just wanted to mention a couple things. Number one, we are recording. And so this recording will be available after we are finished, and you can find that out on our blog site. Also, the slide deck is out there you can find. You may be able to click on the links as we go through here, but you can also get the slide deck out on the blog article later. Also, if you are interested in having a session like this delivered specifically to your team as kind of a dedicated delivery, we do offer that for those with Unified and Premier support. So make sure to reach out to your Microsoft representative, and we'll also have some contact information at the end to talk through that a little bit, or to get more information there. So also feel free to use the chat for questions. Tom and I will be monitoring that as we go through here. So let's get started. And as usual, we'll start with our featured news. First up is Microsoft Viva Sales.
Hey, Ryan, just one quick thing here. It might just be on my end, but it doesn't look like the slide advanced.
Oh, all right, let's see.
Hopefully it's just me. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Let's.
In the chat, can somebody, I can see the slides. All right. Which slide are we seeing?
It is not advanced. Someone else sees the slides changing. Okay. Yep, hosted by, that's what I'm on.
Got it.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to drop briefly and I'll come right back.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks.
All right, sounds good. So we are moving on. Cool. Featured news. So I'm on the Viva Sales slide now. So the first thing I want to talk about is Viva Sales that became generally available in the first part of October here. If you haven't heard of Viva Sales yet, it is a seller application that uses Office and Teams to automatically capture data into any CRM system. So right now, this works with Dynamics 365 and also Salesforce, but basically lets a seller use their CRM data within Microsoft Outlook and Teams. It reduces that time spent searching for information, keeping the sales teams connected, and also augments the seller's actions with AI-powered insights. So there's some good information on that in the link there. YouTube video, kind of how to get started with it. You can visit the Viva Sales webpage and other information. So make sure to take a look at that, especially if you're using Dynamics on the sales side. I just want to mention again the Release Wave 2. I think we talked about this last time as well, but Release Wave 2 is generally available. As with the typical kind of schedule for the release waves, this was available at the beginning of October as generally available anyway. And now has been rolling out to the different regions in October here. Last weekend was the North America rollout. So if you have a environment in North America, this would have been automatically applied if you hadn't applied it manually before that. I think this weekend it'll finish off with the few additional regions, and then it'll be complete. So release wave 2 covers all those features from October now all the way through March of next year. Some of those things get turned on automatically when it gets enabled. Other ones will be coming from now up until March. So definitely take a look at that. As usual, there's a schedule that shows which regions will get it rolled out on which date. And then also, as usual, there was the back in August, I believe, is when it was first kind of announced, and then throughout August and September, you had the ability to test that, and then GA here in October. So take a look at that, and if you weren't aware of it, it should be in your environment unless you were in one of those last regions. Otherwise, make sure you're aware of that and seeing what features and changes are coming to your environments. A couple events to call out. So both of these kind of have happened in the past and are available on demand. I believe the customer experience is available on demand. I'm not sure. That just happened yesterday, and so that you can take a look at that. And then also, of course, Microsoft Ignite was it last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess. And all that, all those sessions there are available on demand as well. So make sure you check that out. Okay, let's talk a little bit about service updates. Wanted to mention here again the new release planner. This is still in preview, but this is a more interactive experience for planning the changes and features that are coming to Power Platform and Dynamics. So if you haven't looked at this yet, I would definitely encourage you to take a look. There's more features being added here, but it just provides a more interactive experience than, say, the static web pages and static PDFs that were available before. So with this, you can, if you log in, you can kind of create your own release plan and you can track certain features. So if there's some that you're interested in, make sure you can to track those, then you can see the changes as they happen. As you probably know, a lot of these features that are in these releases can change up until they are actually released. And so one thing that this release planner does nicely is that it shows those changes and it'll highlight which ones are changed. So say a date changes for a preview or a date changes for the GA date. You can see those pretty easily in here. You can search for different features, all that good stuff. So make sure you take a look at that one to kind of track those features and changes as they're being released. Also, as usual, wanted to mention the deprecations and retirements to look out for. Now in October, there is a couple. The Dynamics 365 connector legacy is deprecated and being removed. So there's different guidance depending on how you're using that, such as if you're using it for Power Automate or maybe you're using it in Logic apps. Definitely take a look at that and see what the guidance is. There's other connectors that you should be using other than that one, so take a look. Also in October, the customer service SLA items in the web client, they're deprecated but not removed yet. So and there's actually been a change in that one where that has been moved to April, where support will be going away for those things. So there's slight change in that one. But again, terminology, deprecation versus retirement. Deprecation means that eventually in the future, those things will be going away, but they're still available now. Whereas retirement actually means that they'll be gone on a certain date. So if we look at November, kind of some similar things there. The first one, there's that the OData version 2 service has been deprecated. It'll be retired. It's been moved now from November to April on that one. So be aware of that. The data export service, however, will retire in November. So make sure that if you're using that, make sure you're moving over to Azure Synapse Link for Dataverse. And be aware that will actually be retired and it's not just deprecated. Okay, a little bit on the updates. We kind of talked about this on the release wave 2 stuff. It's very similar. you can take a look at those release plans. They're all available. So like the latest one right now would be the 2022 release wave 2. Next year, as we approach April, the release wave 1 for 2023 will get released. And then there's also a good article that goes through the timing of those releases, when they'll be available in different regions and to your environment, all that good stuff. So make sure you take a look at that if you're not familiar with it already. A little bit about the Dataverse specific updates. Again, this is very similar to how we roll out the Wave 2 release. It's rolled out by what we call a station, but it's actually the regions. And so there's kind of that first release, and then after that, things get rolled out to different regions, and that this is all available in the website article as well. So depending on where your environment, which region your environment is in, it can depend, that can affect which version you're on. So make sure to check that. You can see which versions. These versions are all rolled out automatically, typically even on a weekly basis, so nothing you really need to do there. But you can take a look at those different service updates and see what's in each one of them. On the Dynamics 365 app side, these do have separate service updates from the, say, Dataverse updates. And so they do also have a different cadence. So like, for instance, sales may be deployed every couple of weeks, customer service. The information is updated there every Tuesday. With field service, that can vary a little bit more. So depending on which Dynamics 365 app you're using, there are different articles available that show the different updates there. So make sure you take a look at those and see when the next update will be for your specific app, see what features are coming, or if there's any updates or even manual steps. Typically there's not with these anymore, but you can take a look at all those on the links there. More on the Power Platform side, there's service updates here as well. There's different updates between Power Apps, Power Automate, Portals, Power BI. So again, depending on what you're using, you can drill into those articles and see what is coming and what is there, since each one of those is a little bit different and they can be different versions. And then finally, if anyone is using the on-prem version of Dynamics 365 or CRM, there's still updates available for the 9.1 and 9.0 on-prem versions. There's an October release there. Service update 1.13 for 9.1, and then service update 0.42 for the 9.0 version. So you can download those and apply those, and those are cumulative. So you should get all the updates previous to that when you apply those as well. All right, I will kick it over to Tom to cover the finance and ops side.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Moving over to finance and operations, service update availability for finance and ops. The most recent generally available update is 10.0.30. And that just came out here very recently. And 10.0.31 is the latest preview version available. You can grab that from the asset library within Lifecycle Services if you want to take a look at that. One thing to kind of be aware of here, so we do provide 7 service updates per year, and we're just moving into that quiet period. So if you look at the calendar, you'll notice that 10.0.30 released in October, and then 31 will not be until January. So we're not releasing anything in November or in November or December. So just something to be aware of there. Excuse me. So from a service update perspective, you need to take, just a reminder here, you need to take at least 2 per year. And our quality updates are available for the current version and 1 previous version. So the difference between a service update is, of course, it includes the quality updates, meaning bug fixes, but it also includes feature enhancements, whereas a quality update would just be bug fixes for the whatever version it applies to specifically. Links to the update calendar and documentation on lifecycle services are provided below. Okay, so one thing that's coming or is in process for finance and operations is kind of moving the quality update process a little bit closer to what Dataverse-based apps are using right now. So just last month, we started distributing something called a proactive quality update. So basically pushing the quality updates out automatically. And we're doing that currently for sandbox environments and only for Azure Public Cloud customers to start with. So what is a proactive quality update? It's moving us toward that one version experience where we have more customers running on the same version as everybody else, keeping you up to date more frequently. So only one update per month is being pushed, and that's just to select sandboxes. Production environments are out of scope for these proactive quality updates as of now. So once the once the system has been in place for a period of time, I'm sure it will expand to all customers, not just Azure Public Cloud, and then eventually out to production. So just something to be aware of here. There's a link if you want to learn more about the proactive quality updates. There's a link at the bottom of this slide. All right, another piece here. This is specific to commerce. There's a link at the bottom that will take you to a page that talks about commerce component versioning requirements. So the graphic on the left here does a pretty good job of laying out basically what the different versions are that are supported and that go together. You have back office components, you have your commerce scale unit components, and you have your client apps. So some of these are things that are updated for you. Some of these things, point of sale devices, things like that are things that you manage versions for yourself. So this just gives you a kind of a grid of supported scenarios, meaning if your back office is on this version, then the supported versions for the other components are listed alongside that. So it's a good grid to kind of go back to from a requirement standpoint if you're running commerce, if you're running the commerce app. Okay. And that's all we have for service updates on the finance and ops side. I'm going to hand it back over to Ryan.
All right, thanks, Tom. So let's talk about some product updates. First for Power Apps. So the first slide just kind of lists the new and planned features for Power Apps that were or are included in Release Wave 2. So like we talked about, Release Wave 2 is now pushed out to most environments. So these features should be available, but it also kind of depends a bit on dates. Like I mentioned, that Release Wave 2 covers everything from October to March. So there may be some features that aren't available right away here in October. And as you can see on the slide, there are different dates for public preview, early access, and then general availability based on the different feature. Also, it calls out, there's a column there called enabled for. And what that does, that shows who the feature is meant for and then how it's actually enabled. So this should be pretty standard across the entire Release Wave 2 if you look at different features. For example, the first one is around it's enabled for users, and it's turned on automatically when it's enabled in the environment. So for some of these, when the release wave 2 is enabled, this type of feature will be automatically enabled, and it's something that is meant for users, so it may impact the user UI and experience. Other ones, like the top one here, users by admins, makers, or analysts. Basically what that means is that the feature itself is for users, but it needs to be enabled by an admin, maker, or analyst. So it's not something that's turned on automatically. So if that feature is interesting to you, you may want to go take a look at it and see how you get that turned on. And then lastly are the ones that are the feature itself is meant more for admins, and it is automatically turned on when the when the release wave is applied or when the GA date or public preview is reached. So that's how you can kind of read those and see which features, when they're enabled, and kind of who they're meant for. Okay, so jumping into the different product updates here. The first one is the public preview of IP-based cookie binding. The IP-based cookie binding, that will help our customers in responding to the cookie replay security threat in Dataverse. The cookie binding blocks that cookie replay attack, and it does so by evaluating the IP address attached to the cookie. So if a cookie IP address in the request is different than the IP address of the cookie, then the Dataverse API will reject that cookie. So and prompt the user. So you can turn that on in the admin settings, as in the screenshot there. So you can turn it on there, and you can also I think on that one that was started being rolled out in August. It's continuing. And yeah, you can enable that in the Power Platform Admin Center. Okay, the next one is the Creator Kit. And so this is a kit that was created by our PowerCat team. This kit is ready to be used for production applications. It contains 24 or more fluent UI controls and templates for Power Apps to help when you're developing new applications. So things like flyout panels, breadcrumb controls, just some different things that can be very helpful. So you don't have to build it yourself. Progress indicators, search boxes, things like that you can get with that kit. So if you're building apps and want kind of a jump start, you can grab that kit and use those controls from there. All right, next one is the content security policy for Power Apps. So this again is a preview. So Power Apps has had the CSP support for model-driven apps since kind of the beginning of the year, and was configured by running scripts as an administrator. With the new capabilities, you can now control those CSP headers from model-driven apps as well as Canvas apps in your environment. And CSP can be configured either as enforcement or just in report-only mode. So you can turn those on in your admin center as well. Next up is the Power Platform Administration Planning solution. So this is a simple solution that you can download and apply that helps you to plan your team structure, and then also review where you spend time and look for different automation or innovation opportunities. So that solution is available to you where you can apply that to your environment and see where that can help in your administration planning. All right, next up, PowerFX. So introducing parse JSON. And so this one is an experimental release, so it's definitely pre-preview, but the parse JSON function can parse JSON strings into PowerFX objects and types, and the new functionality can help simplify working with JSON in Canvas apps. So there's some good illustrations on how to use this in the article linked here. So make sure to check that out if you want to parse those JSON strings within PowerFX. Another PowerFX feature is named formulas. So this is a concept, it's been in Excel for a while, and it's now in PowerFX. And you can simplify the app's initialization, reduce load time, reuse logic, and improve the maintainability. So within Excel, you can name any cell and refer to that name, throughout the workbook, and it adds a level of indirection that allows you to move the cell reference by name rather than by like location. And so this is kind of introduced into PowerFX, and it also allows you to bind a name to a formula that isn't a cell. So take a look at that if you're using PowerFX. This can help help uh, uh, efficiency when you're using PowerFX. There's also a Power Platform Developer Tools release update. This was the August refresh. I don't believe there's one yet for October, but that August refresh has some nice features in it. So if you're using those developer tools, make sure to take a look at that. As far as Power Pages updates, there's a number of them here. There's a good link for announcements in a tech talk that you can take a look at. Some of the specific areas: rich text editor, column permissions, dataverse search, choices columns, and then portals as progressive web apps. So lots of interesting updates there for Power Pages that you can look at in those articles, and then take a look at that tech talk too to go through those things. Okay, on to Power Automate. And so again, this first slide is just a link to the Release Wave 2 features here. So same thing as before. It shows the feature, who and how it's enabled, public preview, early access, and GA. Most of these are GA without previews, but as you can see here, especially like I guess in some of the cloud flows, some of these are November and March timeframe, so not exactly when the Release Wave 2 starts. And then also, if you're using any desktop flows, there's a number of these that are not in October. Again, November, December, and March. So. Okay, first one then on Power Automate is introducing the desktop flow activity. So this basically will help users understand desktop flow usage, measure the effectiveness, and then identify issues. So the report helps quickly identify the most common errors you encounter when you execute flows, and kind of the goal of it is to provide that information around the desktop flows, cloud flows, and machines that are impacted by the errors, and allow the users to directly reach the different details pages and quickly understand those issues. So definitely, if you're using desktop flows, take a look at that. It can definitely help to understand how those flows are working and troubleshoot them quicker. All right, next up is the automation kit for Power Platform, and this is designed to help manage, govern, and scale automation platform adoption based on best practices. So the toolkit is a collection of components and tools based on heat concepts and built using Power Apps and Power Automate. So you can easily extend and customize the kit. So again, that is a kit that you can download and apply to your environment to help manage automation within the Power Platform. And then finally, Power Automate for desktop. If you're using that, there's a September update there. So you can take a look at that and download links there for the features that are available and how to get that. All right, moving on to Power BI. Again, a slide here showing the Power BI Release Wave 2 features. And then the first update we wanted to highlight was the Power BI report and data set management in Power Apps solutions. So app makers can add Power BI reports and data sets as Dataverse components in Power App solution. So this improves the export, import, and customization process. Solutions are the Power Platform tool that enable users to deploy applications built using Power Apps, Power Automate, Dataverse, and other Power Platform services. And so when you add a Power BI report or data set to a solution, it'll stay connected upon deployment across different environments and tenants. And so the report or data set can also be seamlessly managed as part of your ALM process across those environments and tenants. So something very nice that can help move those Power BI reports around being part of your solutions. Next is the user culture DAX function is now supported in Power BI Premium. So combined with the field parameters feature, you can create reports that natively translate table data to the locale defined by the viewer's preference in the Power BI service. By default, the culture is selected based on the user's operating system or browser settings, but this support is currently limited to Power BI. But we're hoping to bring this support to non-premium workspaces at some point in the future. And then one more on Power BI, deployment pipelines, the deployment history feature, and Azure DevOps extension are GA. So all the recent months deployments are available to be reviewed, providing details on the target environment, such as the person who ran the deployment, the deployed items, and the deployment notes content if it's been added. So you can see all that deployment history now. Okay, real quickly, Power Virtual Agents. Just the one slide here on the Release Wave 2 updates. So if you're using Power Virtual Agents, this is the list of some of the features in the Release Wave 2. So definitely take a look at that. On Dataverse and the Dynamics 365 customer engagement apps. First one here is around AI generated conversation summary. So this is something that's in Dynamics 365 customer service, and the ability to automate that AI generated conversation summary when an agent uses embedded Teams capabilities. Such as you can include that summary of the customer issue and the result of the resolution that was tried by the agents, all from just the AI based summary of that conversation. And so this feature is in preview as part of the customer service app. And it says expected to be in preview in October, which I believe it is. No date on GA yet, though. That I don't believe. All right, general availability of embedded teams in customer service. So service agents can engage with their colleagues right over Teams, right through the Dynamics 365 customer service app, rather than having to jump back and forth between different applications. And so those chats in the Teams are then linked directly to the customer service record, and so you can always go back and view those chats as part of that support case in the future. So there's a good video there. It shows all the different Wave 2 release highlights, but that embedded Teams is part of that as well. Okay, and one more. This is just a note on the Release Wave 2 updates on YouTube. So take a look at that. There's some good video out there that goes through the different features that are available. Release Wave 2 in customer service. All right, Tom, back to you.
All right, perfect. First thing we're going to talk about for finance and operations is a platform feature that will be getting enabled by default here in the very near future. So if we take a look at it, service protection API limits, it's basically a feature that is meant to protect the application from getting flooded with requests and either bringing it down or degrading performance for other users. So what we're doing in 10.0.30, so this is the protection limits, the functionality to enable the protection limits has been available for a while now. Now it's just that we'll start enabling it by default and then requiring it in the future. So 10.0.30, once you update to 10.0.30, the API limits will be enabled by default, but you can still disable them. Once 10.0.33 comes, so this would be next year, the user-based API limits will be mandatory and will no longer provide the option to disable. So there's basically two different types of limits or throttling put in place. The first one is resource-based. So if the application is overwhelmed from a resource standpoint, there's certain throttling that happens. And then the user-based throttling is explained in the graph below here. So basically the service protection limits, it's basically looking at, okay, number of requests, execution time, and then number of concurrent requests. There's a great video on this, and I put a link to it at the bottom. It was recorded in May, kind of when this feature was a bit newer, but good to, if you haven't taken a look at that, it goes through the details of the API limits, what to look out for, how do you do your retries if you're getting throttling, stuff like that. So good thing to be aware of here as we move into this version. All right, now a couple of highlights that are app specific. The first one is for finance, and this feature here is coming in January, and save time with ledger settlement automation. So what this will do for you is it will automatically match your debit and credit transactions in the general ledger and mark them as settled so that you don't have to do that process manually. It's basically implemented through a background process, and you can set up rules that specify what you want to actually do. So that is coming in the January timeframe, and should be a nice time-saving feature to look at implementing. All right, one feature to highlight here for supply chain management is the multi-level detours for the warehouse management mobile app. So detours are currently available. What this new feature does is it allows you to perform multi-level detours, meaning a detour on top of a detour. And that just means that, let's say you're in the warehouse performing a task, something comes up that's more important, you can go perform that other task and then come back to exactly where you were previously in the other task. It supports 2 levels of detours out of the box, but can also be extended if needed to go further than that. So an interesting feature that is out in October. All right, looking at commerce, just want to highlight a couple of new payment options that are coming. So public preview is this month, with expected general availability showing up in February, and pretty straightforward description of this. Basically, we'll start supporting Apple Pay and Google Pay through the D365 payment connector for Aiden, and that's both for point of sale and e-commerce checkout. So links are provided there if you want to learn more about that. All right, into the learning corner and back to you, Ryan.
All right, thanks, Tom. All right, Learning Corner. So we'll cover a few items such as blog articles, video, different things to be aware of that cover on some specific type topics. The first one is a blog article from our team blog, and this is covering Power Automate and Dataverse in querying data from other environments. So this goes through using the HTTP action a method to query data from other environments outside of your existing Dataverse environment. So kind of cool there. You can if you have more than one, say production environment, you can use this kind of method to query data from one within a flow from another. So take a look at that article. Next one is analyzing Azure DevOps work item revisions with the process advisor. And so this is around using that process advisor, which is kind of within Power Automate, to take a look at your processes and get advisory tips on there. That article is kind of nice. It goes through an example of, I believe it's a process that is tracking progress in a DevOps environment, and it kind of goes and shows how the process advisor can show different optimizations within that whole process. So take a look at that one as well. The next one is, this one's out on the Power Apps blog, 3 primary reasons to learn Dataverse. And so this just kind of goes through, why you should take the time to really look into Dataverse. There's a big return on investment when you start using it and understanding what it can do. So a good article there to take a look at for sure. And then finally, our PowerCat team continues to, release great videos on a variety of topics across the Power Platform. These are out on YouTube on their channel out there. So take a look at that and subscribe there so you get all the latest. There's some great things out there to keep you up to date. All right, Tom, learning corner for finance and ops.
All right, great. We just have one recent blog post to highlight from our team here, and this one is around dealing with bank statement import and export activity for positive pay files. And there's been some recent deprecations that affected this. So how you implement either through electronic reporting or otherwise would be impacted through these deprecations. So this is a good blog to kind of go through to look at what has changed and give some tips for you. So take a look at that one if you're using positive pay through finance and operations. Okay. So some upcoming fast track tech talks. There's a couple coming around asset management, and then also optimizing the experience in Dynamics 365. So a couple of things to look at there. Not as full of a schedule upcoming here as it normally is, but those are a couple of good topics to look into. All right. So last month, or in the last 6 weeks or so, there were a ton of tech talks that happened, and those were all recorded and are now available for you to take a look at on demand. So one specific one around the tax calculation service. So that's basically taking a look at what are the new features that are implemented within that tax calculation service, which is basically a microservice that finance and operations can connect to. So there's that topic, and then there's also project operations around material consumption, procurement, and expenses. So those are a couple of highlights for recent recorded tech talks. There are many more. Check out the link at the bottom of the slide here for a full list. Right, I think we hit the end.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Couple things, like I mentioned before, if you and your organization are interested in having a dedicated session such as this for your team, make sure to reach out to us. You can find contact information on the blog. I put a link in the chat for a shortened link that'll get you to an article that has all the information as far as these updates that we're doing. On the slide here are links to our different blogs, the customer engagement and Power Platform one, and then the finance and ops blog articles, and then also you can catch us on Twitter at PFE Dynamics. So make sure to reach out to us with any questions. We really appreciate everyone joining today. We typically do this on a monthly basis, so look out for the November version of the webcast. Again, thanks for joining. Hope everyone has a great day.